And now the opening pages of the short story Graveyard Shift by Stephen King. 2 a.m. Friday. Hall was sitting on a bench by the elevator, the only place on the third floor where a working Joe could catch a smoke, when Warwick showed up. He was not happy to see Warwick. The foreman wasn't supposed to show up on the third floor during the graveyard shift. He was supposed to stay down in his office in the basement, drinking coffee from the urn that stood on the corner of his desk. Besides, it was hot. It was one of the hottest Junes on record in Gates Falls, and the Orange Crush thermostat, which was also by the elevator, had once rested at 94 degrees at 3 in the morning. God only knew what kind of hellhole the mill was on the 3 to 11 shift. Hall worked the picker machine, a bulky gadget manufactured by a defunct Cleveland firm in 1934. He had only been working in the mill since April, which meant he was still making minimum wage, $1.78 an hour, which was still all right. No wife, no steady girl, no alimony. He was a drifter, and during the last 3 years he had moved on with his thumb from Berkeley, a college student, to Lake Tahoe, busboy, to Galveston, a stevedore, to Miami, short order cook, to Wheeling, taxi driver and dishwasher, to Gates Falls, Maine, picker machine operator. He didn't figure on moving again until the snow fell. He was a solitary person, and he liked the hours from 11 to 7, when the blood flow of the big mill was still at its coolest, not to mention the temperature. The only thing he did not like was the rats. The third floor was long and deserted, lit only by a sputtering glow of the fluorescents. Unlike the other levels of the mill, it was relatively silent and unoccupied, at least by the humans. The rats were another matter. The only machine on 3 was the picker. The rest of the floor was storage for the 90-pound bags of fiber which had yet to be stored by Hall's long-geared tooth machine. They were stacked like link sausages in long rows, some of them, especially the discontinued Meltons and irregular slips for which there were no other orders, years old and dirty gray with industrial wastes. They made fine nesting places for the rats, huge, fat-bellied creatures with rabid eyes and bodies that jumped with lice and vermin. Hall had developed a habit of collecting a small arsenal of soft drink cans from the trash barrel during his break. He pegged them at the rats during the times when the work was slow, retrieving them later at his leisure. Only this time, Mr. Foreman caught him, coming up the stairs instead of using the elevator, like the sneaky son of a bitch everyone said he was. "What are you up to, Hall?" "The rats," Hall said, realizing how lame that must sound now that all the rats had snugly safely back into their houses. "I peg cans at 'em when I can see 'em." Warwick nodded once briefly. He was a big beefy man with a crew cut. His shirt sleeves were rolled up and his tie was pulled down. He looked at Hall closely. "We don't pay you to chunk cans at rats, mister. Not even if you pick 'em up again." "Harry hasn't sent down an order for 20 minutes, Hall answered, thinking, why couldn't you stay the hell where you were and drink your coffee? "I can't run it through the picker if I haven't done it yet." Warwick nodded as if the topic no longer interested him. "Maybe I'll take a walk up and see Wisnowski," he said. 5 to 1, he's reading a magazine while the crap piles up in his bins. Hall didn't say anything. Warwick suddenly pointed. There's one! Get the bastard! Hall fired the Coke can he had been holding with one of his whistling overhand motions. The rat, which had been watching them from atop one of the fabric bags with his bright buck eyes, fled with one faint squeak. Warwick threw back his head and laughed as Hall went after the can. I came to see you about something else, Warwick said. Is that so? Next week's 4th of July week, Hall noted. The mill would be shut down Monday to Saturday. Vacation week for some men with at least 1 year's tenure. Layoff week for men with less than a year. You want to work? Hall shrugged. Doing what? We're gonna clean the whole basement level. Nobody's touched it for 12 years. Hell of a mess. We're gonna use the hoses. The town zoning committee's getting on board of the directors, you know. Warwick looked steadily at Hall. You want it or not? 2 an hour, double time on the 4th. We're working the graveyard shift because it'll be cooler. Hall calculated. He could clear maybe $75 after taxes. Better than the goose egg he had been looking forward to. All right. Report down by the dye house next Monday. Hall watched him as he stared back at the stairs. Where Warwick paused halfway there, turning back to look at Hall. You used to be a college boy, didn't you? Hall nodded. Okay, college boy, I'm keeping it in mind. He left. Hall sat down and lit another smoke, holding a soda can in one hand and watching for the rats. He could just imagine how it would be in the basement, the sub-basement actually, a level below the dye house. Damp, dark, full of spiders and rotten cloth and ooze from the river and the rats. Maybe even bats, the aviators of the rodent family. Ah! Hall threw the can hard and then smiled thinly to himself as the faint sound of Warwick's voice came down through the overhead ducts, reading Harry Winooski, The Riot Act. Okay, college boy, I'm keeping it in mind, he echoed in his head. He stopped smiling abruptly and butted his smoke. A few moments later, Woznicki started to send rough nylon down through the blowers, and Hall went to work. And after a while, the rats came out, sat on top the bags at the back of the room, watching him with their unblinking black eyes. They looked like a jury.